Hello everybody and welcome to my YouTube channel Academic Adventures Now. My name is Faraz and in this section I'm going to talk about IELTS speaking. IELTS speaking is one of the 4 sections of the IELTS test and it's designed to assess your ability to communicate in English in a formal setting. In this video, I'm going to give you a brief overview of IELTS speaking and I'll also provide you some tips for success. If you are planning to take your IELTS test or you just want to increase your information and knowledge about IELTS speaking, this video is for you. So by the end of the video, you will be able to describe a familiar topic using specific examples. You will also learn how to pace yourself while speaking to give a full natural response. You will also learn how to use proper tenses while speaking about the past, present, and future. You will also learn strategies for answering introduction and interview questions. Here are a few tips for you. Understand the format of the test. There are 3 sections which we'll talk about in a while, but you need to know what type of questions are included in those sections, how much time you'll speak, or what is the criteria for scoring. So you need to familiarize yourself with these things and also practice speaking with native speaker if you can find. If not, that doesn't matter. You can speak with anyone. You can find people online. But remember, practice will lead you to better score. So practice as much as you can. Record yourself and listen. In the beginning, it might look strange to you listening to your own sound, but then you'll get used to it and maybe you'll start liking your sound. But anyway, record yourself and listen and see what type of mistakes you're making. There might be a pattern in your mistakes, so it's a good idea to analyze them, understand them, and you must try to overcome them. Improve your vocabulary, read as much as you can, make your own list of words, and when you look for a word, do not just look its meaning. Also look its usage, how it's used in a sentence, and also see its pronunciation. Check its pronunciation, repeat. Nowadays it's a lot easier to find pronunciation of words. Just Google it, or even in YouTube there are dictionaries which help you in correct pronunciation. So improve your vocabulary, familiarize yourself with the structure, record yourself and listen. Here are a few more tips. Engage in active listening. See how people read the text and try to imitate them. Nowadays you can find books, audio books, listen to them. They'll help you quite a lot in improving your speaking and your pronunciation. And also pay attention to intonation, because that is really important in speaking correct English. Let's say, for example, if you're happy, your pronunciation will be different. When you're angry, when you're emphasizing on a point, so you produce different kinds of sounds, or your intonation pattern will be different. So pay attention to other people, how they are speaking. Be active listeners of interviews, talk shows. That will improve your listening also, and that will improve your speaking as well. Also practice with IELTS speaking test questions. There are past papers available. Find them, practice them, listen to yourself one more time. I'll emphasize the same point, that listen to yourself also, because you can correct so many mistakes just by listening to yourself. And also get feedback. Find a good teacher who can tell you your mistakes, and you must improve them accordingly. After these tips, let's talk about speaking part 1, IELTS speaking part 1. IELTS speaking part 1 is an introduction. For example, where do you work, what do you study, what do you do in your free time, and what are your views on specific topic. For example, houses these days, or maybe traffic congestion. But do not expect difficult topics. So let's take it this way. These are the topics that you talk about when you meet somebody for the first time. So it's like a kind of a small talk that is about you, the things that you like, the things that you do. So, but this section is assessed, and the assessment is for your ability to communicate in English. And when question is asked, please do not provide a one-line answer. Target at least 3 to 4 sentences about any question that is asked. For example, if the examiner asks you, where do you work? Then you can talk about past, where you work, where you were working, where you're working now, and then you can talk about your future desire as well to work somewhere. So that will make the conversation going, and she'll have or he'll have some chance to assess your ability to speak in English. So if you give one-line answer, there won't be enough assessment, and then you won't be getting enough bands. So for example, if she asks you, where do you work? So you can say, I used to work in a small school near my neighborhood. Now I'm working in a university, but in future I am planning to switch the job to industry. So conversation should go show the examiner that you are interested in conversation, right? So take the examiner somebody that you really want to talk to, so that will keep the conversation going, right? So do not give one-line answers. At least target 3 to 4 sentences for any question, right? Do not hesitate in speaking. Do not do lots of fillers are okay, you can use filler, but do not overuse them, because that will also show that you are not fluent in your speaking. Before we talk about IELTS speaking section 1, let's talk about making a good impression. It's really essential that you make a good impression, and you can do it by maintaining eye contact and keeping a good posture and improving your body language, because that overall, your body language, maintaining eye contact, will boost your confidence, and when you're confident, you can speak well. And also practice answering questions about familiar topics, like topics that we normally talk when we meet any person for the first time, about their schooling, education, work, what they like, where they live. These are some topics, some of the familiar topics that you should practice. And I'll also provide you a list. Now let's look at these questions. These are some of the topics that you should practice on. You should speak at length about these topics, maybe speak for 40 seconds or even for 1 minute on these topics. So, and use proper connectives with these topics. Whenever you move from one sentence to another sentence, it should look coherent and logical also. And please do not memorize. Don't expect these exact questions coming in IELTS exam, and therefore do not memorize them, do not cram them, because if the examiner gets the impression that you are speaking from memory, your band score will go down. Let's look at the sample question. You might expect a question like this: let's talk about food, and then there might be related question like favorite food, enjoy cooking. The questions can be around tried unusual food, or traditional dish from your country, or eating out, or cooking at home. So this question will require you to be specific and at the same time provide details also about it, right? So you should also talk about your preferences about all these and use descriptive language, which means the language which can be helpful in picturizing things, picturizing. So for example, you can talk about cuisine as vocabulary, exotic food, traditional food, flavors, ingredients, delicious, favorite, preference. So these are some of the words which can help you score higher band if you use them. And also when it comes to us talking about favorite food, you can talk about any that you have. But what I normally ask my student is to talk about familiar ideas. If you can't think of words, you don't actually think of words while you are giving answers, because that will show that you don't have enough language to talk. So maybe some of the examples could be Italian food, pasta, pizza, right? So if the question is related to enjoying food, so you can talk about how creativity is aiding you, is helping you in doing experiments with different flavors. Or when there is a question about unusual food, so you can talk about any trip that you took in the past, and if you tasted any different kind of food or any unique flavor that you can recall, right? And also if the question is related to traditional food, so even if you talk about food which is in your country, let's say biryani, roast beef, you should be able to describe that also. So it will show that you can actually say the things, you can name the things, and you have ability to speak about them in a words which are helpful in visualizing, right? So talk about that, right? And when talking about preferences, so you should think if you prefer cooking at home or eating out, and what are the reasons for that. So this will give you enough space to speak at length. So that's the main idea, right? What's the main idea? Give the answer and then explain that. At least speak 3 to 4 sentences in section 1, in part 1 of IELTS speaking. Let me show you some sample questions, right? You might expect questions like, what is your favorite hobby and why? Even if, now remember, even if the examiner is not asking why, you should be ready to explain that, right? So give the answer to the examiner. And one more thing, do not repeat words of the examiner. For example, if the examiner says, what is your favorite hobby? The thing I like doing most, that is much better saying in this way instead of saying it my favorite hobby is. So when you're saying my favorite hobby is, what you're doing, you are repeating the words of the examiner. So don't do that. Use paraphrasing, use other words. So these are some sample questions for part 1. Read them and also try to answer these questions, right? So let me read one more. Describe a memorable experience from your past, so you can practice answering questions. In fact, you can pause this video, practice answering these questions, and then you can come back, continue with the rest of the video. Remember everybody, this is English speaking test. So that means you have to demonstrate that you can speak at length and you can speak in a variety of ways. You can use different tenses, know the meaning of those tenses, know how these tenses are used. In fact, I have made another video. In fact, I have made many videos about types of sentences. I'll suggest you to watch those and learn how different tenses are used. But here I'll just mention briefly. Simple present is used for habits, what you do on routine basis. Present continuous is used for things which are in continuous order or they are in progressive form. So for example, I am studying for IELTS exam to improve my English. This is happening at this time, right? Simple past is used for actions or events which started in the past and completed in the past. They do not show any relevance with the present. For example, last summer I traveled to Europe and visited historic landmarks, right? So this started in the past and finished in the past, completed in the past, doesn't have any relevance with the present. The tense doesn't show that. And past continuous tense, like for example, something was happening and in the middle of that something else happened. So when I was writing a letter, my friend called me. So another activity was continued that took place before another event took place, right? For example, I was studying when my friends called and asked to go for a walk. And present perfect tense is used for actions, events which completed in the past, but they have connection with the present, they have relevance with the present. For example, I have completed graphic design diploma and worked as a freelance designer for 2 years, right? So now the relevance of completing graphic design is still there, right? And for future simple tense, so anything that you plan, you think you will do in the future. For example, next month I'll start a new job as a marketing manager. So learn the difference between all these tenses so that you can use them. You can use right tense at the right place. And in part 2, you'll be assessed on the basis of your ability to speak at length on a given topic. So you'll speak more than you were doing in your part 1. In part 1, I told you for every question, you'll speak for 3 or 4 sentences for every question, but here you'll speak at length. So what happens, you have 1 minute to prepare your response. So whatever the topic will be, there'll be a prompt, there'll be a question that will be given to you, and then you'll be given a separate sheet also to write down your ideas. You can prepare, right? You can write notes and then you can talk about them. It's okay to look at notes and then speak, but you won't be taking those notes with you when you complete your this section, right? So speaking time can be 1 minute, or speaking time can be 2 minutes, from 1 to 2 minutes. So don't worry if the examiner stops you, because she or he would have made the judgment, he or she would have assessed you well, and then only then she'll ask you to stop. But then it doesn't normally go beyond 2 minutes. So the examiner will evaluate you on the basis of your fluency. That means you're not doing and you're not using lots of fillers, like so if you do that, certainly you will be scored low on your fluency. And then coherence, if you're using connecting devices, your sentences are well linked. And how sentences are linked together, sentences can be linked together with pronouns. For example, if you're talking about I bought my mobile yesterday, it functions well. So it is connecting first sentence with the second. And also if you want to add more information, so you can use words like in addition, additionally, moreover, furthermore. So this shows that you're adding information. And if you're contrasting, so words like however, on the other hand, but, nevertheless. So this will show that you can speak using connecting devices. So that will give you good band if you do that. And vocabulary also, if you use basic level words, your score will be low. Of course, intermediate, better score, and if you do advanced level, then certainly you'll get higher band. So improve your vocabulary. And grammar also, avoid making mistakes. Self-correction is okay. So know where to use s and es in present simple tense. For example, he talks sensibly. So he talks, not he talks. So avoid these kind of mistakes. And verb agreement as well. For example, I have made a promise, not I has made a promise. So learn speaking in proper tenses and grammatically correct sentences. And pronunciation also, as I said earlier, when we were talking about part 1, don't worry about your accent, but your pronunciation should be good. That means your stress pattern should also be good. So what I'll suggest you, whenever you look up a word in a dictionary, do not just look its meaning, also look its usage, and also see the stress pattern. That will always be a sign that will show you that how stress pattern works. Normally in English, second syllable is stressed, but then you have to verify it doesn't apply to all the words. So you need to familiarize yourself English stress pattern, right? Stay on the topic, although you can deviate a little, but then that doesn't mean you can go completely off the topic, right? So you can digress, you can go at length, you can talk about, if they're asking you let's talk about any personality, you can in fact talk about 2 personalities. If they are asking you to talk about 1 event, you can talk about 2 events, but then still try to understand that you are on the topic. Still you're talking within the same boundary of the topic. So don't go completely off the topic. If they ask you to talk about a personality, don't talk about a building. Don't go completely deviated from the topic, and use preparation time to organize ideas. So think how you will start. And let me give you one tip also. If you organize your notes like in the time frame, that will help you also and will give you enough material to talk about. So like for example, if the topic is speak on a familiar speak about a movie, you can talk about movie that you watched in the past, in the present, and in the future as well. So that will show that you can speak in different tenses, and at the same time you are on the topic, so you won't run out of ideas if you do that. So this is one of the strategies. You can use it, you can apply, and I'm sure you will do really well on speaking part 2. So now I'll show you now the sample question. This is how IELTS speaking part 2 would look like. Of course there won't be green color, but the questions will be structured like this. the box that you see, but there won't be questions that I've added right now. These are there for your help. We'll talk about it in a while, but your question prompt, question card will look like. So in the beginning, there'll be instructions and they'll be same for all questions. So any questions that one may get, these instructions will be same. Please read the topic below carefully. You will be asked to talk about it for 1 to 2 minutes. You will have 1 minute to think about what you are going to say. You can make some notes to help you if you wish. And then there'll be a question prompt. Describe a place you have visited. You should say, and then there'll be 3 dots, and in each dot there'll be one hint. Where it was and when you went there, whether anyone went with you, what happened during your visit. Also explain what you liked or didn't like about that place. So how you should prepare. You can quickly jot down answer to the questions which have been given here, the ideas that are given here. You can think about this as an event, as a story. Some introduce the topic, and then you can talk about the events which took place. Think of any tension points or any problem that happened, and then how that was resolved. That'll give you enough material, and then conclude in the end also. So this is one strategy. The other strategy could be, you can talk about this place in the past, and then present and future as well. That will also give you enough material, and there is a possibility that the time will be over and you will not run out of your material. You will not run out of your ideas. So apply a few strategies and see what works for you. And then after you have finished speaking, the examiner will ask you a few questions, 1 or 2 questions related to the topic. So when the question is asked, do not give one sentence answer, speak at length. Ideally, speak at least 4 to 5 sentences. So what you should speak? Answer the question, but remember, do not repeat the words of the examiner. Use different words. Paraphrase, right? What do you like about visiting different places? So I always feel fascinated when I go to the areas around the world. See, different words. And what fascinates me more is, and then you explain what fascinates you. For example, then you add example to that, and then hence concluding as a result. So this is how you should build your argument for follow-up questions, right? Let's talk about IELTS Speaking Section 3. So this section is the final section of the test. So part 1 is introduction, then part 2 you speak at length, and in part 3 there is a conversation between you and the examiner. Except like in real conversation, normally you speak, both the people speak at length, but here the examiner will put forward a question and you'll have to speak at length. And this section focuses on abstract and complex questions. So questions are not directly relevant to you, they are bigger questions which could be related to everybody. And then some of these questions, or maybe all of these questions, could pertain to section 2 that you have already covered, right? And this requires expressing opinion and discussing various aspects of the topic. That means you have to explain your answer, you have to give examples, and you also have to give conclusion to what you are saying, right? So speak at length, give your opinions. It might require you to defend the question. So if you put forward an argument, if you talk about anything, the examiner might ask you a counter question. So be ready to defend that. When we defend, we give arguments. So we give examples. We try to justify that. You can justify from your experience or from your reading, but it will require you to talk at length. Topics related to, there may be society related issues, cultural issues, education, or it can be any abstract concept. So this can be a little challenging because this will require you to use advanced level words. So here are tips for IELTS Speaking Section 3. Number 1, familiarize yourself. Know how this section is structured. Try to know the questions. You can refer to past questions. They are there on internet. You can buy books also. You can find past questions. Practice and use examples. Don't just give a statement. Use examples. More than one examples will, the more the better, right? And you can add ideas from your experience. And also this is like justifying what you said. So you have to give examples to justify, and organize your answers logically. So organization can work as we organize a paragraph. So we answer the question, we explain, and then give example. That is how you build an argument. So take it from that point of view, right? Also listen very carefully. Sometimes what happens, we are, when we are nervous especially, we rush to the to answer instead of listening carefully. So listen carefully, and it's okay to ask the examiner to repeat the question. That will also show that you can use English, you can use language to ask for repetition. So you can say, pardon, excuse me, I didn't get it, can you please repeat, or any other suitable sentence can be used here in this situation when you don't understand what the examiner is saying, right? So be active listener also, right? Here are a few more tips for doing this section, particularly third section, and these can also be used for overall your test. So manage time well. You need to understand that you're speaking at length. You are maintaining a steady pace to cover all relevant points, and then be confident. So utilize intonation. So if you're happy, your tone is going to be different. Understand how a stress pattern changes in different kind of situation. Also maintain very positive body language as well, and expand your vocabulary. It's really essential. Start building your vocabulary, and as I said earlier, when you try to understand a new word, do not just look up its meaning. Try to be familiar with its usage and also pronunciation, right? And read and engage. So improve your comprehension, because if you read more, that will also improve your language, and also practice your pronunciation. Develop clear speech with proper intonation, and the tip that I gave you is record yourself and listen. That will also help you, and also imitate other people. How see how other people speak, and then you can adopt other people's style for some time, but then you need to develop your own style ultimately. And a few more tips: use sample questions, be familiar with the question and answer them. Organize your thoughts, as I said earlier, structure them, give them proper structure, provide specific examples, and then speak natural language. And by natural language means do not pretend to be like native speakers. That will not help. That might invite more problems, more mistakes. So don't do that. Your own accent should be okay, but try to speak in correct pronunciation, right? And if you don't understand the question, please ask for clarification. Be confident. So these are the things. Some of them I have already spoken, and then it's good that I emphasized here one more time. So that's it, everybody. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please don't forget to subscribe it. See you in another video. Thank you so much. Take good care, and bye-bye.